Thomas Glen.
Tim Sauerman.
And I'm Christina from Presstartoplay, and I'm going to interview them today. First question for you guys. So it's your first year here for ValorCon, Chicago's first gaming con, right? What are you guys trying to accomplish?
Well, so there's a number of ways to answer that question because we have a lot of goals in mind. From presenting Chicago with an event that it doesn't currently have standpoint, we're trying to offer meet a demand that's not being met. On a more personal level, we want to position ourselves to be a positive influence on the gaming industry in a number of areas. We'd like to lower the barriers of entry to new players in different types of games, make it easier for disparate gaming communities to kind of meet each other and do a little cross-pollination, so to speak. We would like to help the gaming industry move forward in a positive way in respect to gender equality, racial equality, both from the standpoint of making women and players of color and transgender people and LGBT players, making them more comfortable in public gaming event spaces, encouraging them to come. And then from the industry standpoint as well, we would like to be a positive influence on evening the playing field for professionals in the gaming industry, game designers, producers, writers, that sort of thing. Some of these goals are going to have to be met in an indirect way, but if we lead by example, and then a certain degree of influence will trickle down, I believe. If we create safe spaces, comfortable spaces, and encourage discussion on those topics in a public way, I think there will be a butterfly effect that combines with other efforts that are going on elsewhere in the industry. I think gaming had a well-deserved reputation for a long time as a boys' club kind of situation, and it's already starting to come out of that, and we'd like to position ourselves to help that.
That's good, because I'm a girl gamer, and I'm gay, so all those things sound really great. So I have difficulty all the time on Xbox Live, so I understand what you're saying. So how long did this take to actually get together, get everything together? And
you want to take that? Or do you want to?
Oh, gosh, when did we start?
2013, November. Technically, we had the first conversation around September of 2013. There was a resurgence of the Dick Wolves controversy linked to PAX, Penny Arcade Expo, which I won't relate the whole thing here, but basically they had some trouble interacting with some of their own fans that were rape survivors and their supporters, and it bled over a little bit into the LGBT crowd as well. And they were just stumbling a bit, I think, on being open to diversity within their own house. And it started, I think, a year or two before. It kind of quieted down, and so as things happen in fandom, controversies tend to reach a boiling point, and then they cool off, and we all learn. Hopefully, some of us learn from the experience, and we move on. Well, this resurfaced. They shot themselves in the foot a little bit by bringing it back up in a public forum, and then the internet lit up again. And I was not there when this happened, but I read about it online, and it was a triggering effect for me. It was I got a little upset. Gaming is something I'm very passionate about, and I love the social aspect of gaming. And in my own personal life, I was at a point, and am still in a point in a journey where I'm building a family, and I'm still learning about how to effectively interact with others. I was a typical nerd growing up. I had a very hard time with public speaking, with making friends, with maintaining effective relationships, validating other people's points of view. And so I have made a lot of progress in my own efforts to build a happy and healthy home environment. And so there's a parallel between what's happening in the gaming industry, I think, and what my own personal journey is at right now. And so when that happened in 2013, I got a little upset. Yeah. I was like, why are, and it wasn't just the Dick Wolf's thing, which your listeners can look up through Google. There's plenty of information out there. But around that time, there was a lot of attention on harassment and bullying and gatekeeping, not just in gaming, but in nerdom and fandom in general. There were camera crews that were at New York Comic-Con that were harassing cosplayers. There were the Gamergate thing started to bubble up at some point. Jennifer Hepler at Electronic Arts, I think. I apologize if I'm getting some of the facts wrong, but she received a huge amount of online harassment over Dragon Age 2's combat system, which she had nothing to do with. She was a writer for that title, but somehow somebody on the internet connected the two, and she was the focus of a hate campaign. So it was a nexus, a confluence of events that happened. And, harassment and gatekeeping, they've been there for a long time. It's just that it's been more in the spotlight in recent years. Yeah. So this was a call to action for me. At the same time, I recognized that it was also a good business opportunity because Gen Con, and by the way, we're interested here at ValorCon in tabletop gaming and video gaming. We're trying to split our attention pretty equally.
And there's nothing in Chicago.
There's nothing in Chicago. We're one of the biggest gamer populations in the United States. And so, Gen Con has really thrived and grown since it moved to Indianapolis from Lake Geneva. Yeah. Penny Arcade Expo has done well in Boston and Seattle and San Antonio now. They're doing well. And we have larger gamer populations than any of those locations.
And there's nothing.
There was just nothing. So then
Chicago is not an easy town to do a show in, actually. Yeah. I mean, that's my background. I do trade shows and corporate events for a living. And I've known Thomas for
ever.
We tried to figure this out the other day. We really couldn't figure out when we officially first met. But it was actually online gaming.
Yes.
EverQuest.
Yes.
EverQuest.
Nice.
Yeah.
EverQuest 1.
Nice.
With the original interface. It was like a 300 by 200 window.
Yeah.
We have someone on our website that plays that. That's fun.
Nice.
And so he approached me with it, and my first instinct was we need to have this up in the suburbs somewhere because doing a show in Chicago is very difficult. Yeah. He pushed and pushed and pushed. I'm like, all right, let's make the logistics work. And it's been a struggle. I mean, it was very difficult. I was just talking to somebody else about this earlier. In July, we were 24 hours away from pulling the plug on this year. Wow. And we discovered Block 37 was still available, which they wouldn't talk to us early on because they won't book the space out, 6 months in advance because they want to sell it to a retail company. Yeah. And Thomas is like, hey, this is available. We should do this. I'm like, go get a contract, send me drawings. And I was actually boarding a plane as he's sending me the drawings and the contract. I'm trying to load them as the flight attendant's telling me, turn your phone off.
Like, this is important. This is my whole life here.
I literally drew the show out once on the plane, sent him the first draft when I landed. I'm like, we can do this. We can do this. Yeah.
And it's a challenging space. It was a good price point for what we needed, for the amount of space we needed. But there was no lighting in here.
No electricity. No ventilation.
Right.
But I mean, the bigger picture too about the city of Chicago, when we approached the hotels, they wouldn't take us seriously. The Hyatt was one of the first ones that actually opened up communication, and they looked at shows like Dragon Con and PAX and like, wow, this is really viable. We'd love to have you here for $1 million. We're like, okay, that's not going to work.
Yeah. How about you drop that by a digit?
Yeah.
So, of course, I mean, they gave us a nice formal offer, but it was way too expensive, and it was all the logistics behind it. And we're actually going to be moving into the – can we say that?
Yeah, this is the first announcement.
Okay.
2016, we're going to be moving into the Sheridan Towers off of Water Street.
Nice.
And that's where we're going to be planting our flag for the foreseeable future. The sales rep there did the same thing. We went in. We got a proposal. It was outrageous, but there was no way we could afford it. And the gentleman, his name is Tad, he went back to his sales team and it's like, listen, I went to their show. These guys are great. They got a great product. They're very enthusiastic. This is going to grow astronomically over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Let's give them a ground floor pricing. So they came back with a second proposal, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is real. We can do this. Yeah. So we went ahead and signed a contract for 2016, and he gave me a contract for 2017, nice. Kind of sitting in my pocket for us to think about.
That's good. That's really good for the future.
I think it's important for your listeners to know, if just on the off chance that this becomes somebody's model for doing business, we can get out of that contract for until 6 months out.
Correct.
Which gives us the flexibility to make sure it's the right choice.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to plan that way. You have to be very careful. I mean, this was a balancing act.
Yeah, it still is. It's our last day of a show, and it's still a balancing act.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's been a wild ride already.
It has been. I thankfully my forte is doing stuff like this, so I know how to find the cheaper costs, cut corners, and still produce a wonderful show for the audience.
Yeah.
But we hit a couple milestones yesterday at the height of the show, so we knew Saturday was going to be the biggest day.
Yeah.
And we sold our 500th pass at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's awesome.
And at the same time, right around the same time, we for the first time during the weekend filled every single table in the space at the same time.
Nice.
And so we've had a lot of people give us positive feedback, and a few people in the industry have said they are amazed that we have hit this level in our first year.
Yeah.
A lot of conventions sell 200, 300 tickets tops their first year. So we're very happy.
So what would you guys like to add or do differently in the coming years, since you are planning to have another ValorCon?
One of the biggest lessons we learned here this year is we tried to find space for everything. So we put collectible card gaming here, and table card gaming there, and electronic gaming over here. But we also noticed that the age group for the various audiences drive traffic in certain directions. So unfortunately, collectible card gaming hurt a lot because the younger players migrate toward collectible card gaming and electronic gaming. They're opposite sides. So we're going to design the show to help traffic flow past these various areas based on the age group, and help drive people to them and help sell their product and introduce people to more games.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a gamer myself, and the thing that I like to see on here, it's like, that looks really cool.
Yeah.
I never would have looked at this unless I accidentally walked by it. So that's why we want to redesign the show so people get a better flavoring of everything that's out there based on what they want to do and what they're accidentally going to run into.
And we've already been in touch with some of the big names in the industry, so that's an obvious way to grow, is to get relationships with Paizo, with Wizards of the Coast, on the tabletop side with Fantasy Flight and Mayfair, who was actually here doing a Catan tournament for us. And then in the electronic side, things like the esports people, Riot, Steam, and so the question's going to become, how do we hold on to our local flavor as we grow? Because we had over 50 role-playing game sessions that you could sign up for over the weekend, and about half of those were being run by local designers who created the game that you're playing. And we had a lot of panels that were local experts. We had Gamers HQ from Third Lake is running our electronic gaming.
My friend works there. He's part of our website.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. And Dice Dojo and Bonus Round Games are doing Let's Play areas for us. Brian Jerger from Gamers World is running card trades. We had performers from local groups like Rax Geek and Acrobatica Infinity, Otherworld Theater, the Improvised Star Trek podcast, Caffeinated Comics podcast. So we want this to continue to be a Chicago show, so that it's not something you can just get by going to Boston or going to Seattle.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of our gamers are hungry for those big, well-known names, big titles. They want to, so we want, and also there's an opportunity for esports in particular to land in Chicago and grow, and we could be a part of that. Esports, for anybody that's listening, being not like Madden sports, but rather these League of Legends, Dota 2, StarCraft, Heroes of the Storm, things that are doing big numbers and huge arenas across the world. Chicago's missing out on that.
Yeah.
And I think we have a big crowd that would really love to play into that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be, we're going to have to do a balancing act with how do we stay true to our local roots while we introduce these outside elements from, corporate gaming.
Yeah. What are some of your guys' best moments and biggest surprises? It sounds like yesterday was a big surprise with the 500 mark.
I wouldn't call it a surprise, but we were, I don't know about Tim, but I was very nervous that I was almost irrationally nervous that we wouldn't do as well as all the indicators showed we were going to do.
Yeah.
It's like evidence kept mounting that we're okay, it's going to work. But I guess my personality is such that I'm going to hedge my bets. I'm going to prepare for the worst, just in case. And it worked out. So.
Yeah, I mean, just all doing drawings and phone calls with all the logistic agencies and stuff like that up until the day we open the doors, and you get in there and it's like you're not so much concerned about seeing a bunch of people in a room and butts in seats. You're actually, what I looked for when I stood here yesterday was the people having fun. The people smiling, the people laughing, and it brought a tear to my eye to see that. I mean,
it's pretty cool. My favorite moment from the show so far, we have a house cup competition that's based on the Harry Potter sort of system.
I love Harry Potter.
Okay, so there you go.
I went to England just for
Perfect.
Harry Potter stuff.
Excellent.
And I should clarify that the house cup system, J.K. Rowling didn't invent that, but she popularized it here in the United States. And so I thought, here's an opportunity for us to create and keep it very simple.
Yeah.
But for us to give disparate communities a chance to interact and be part of a team where these guys would be over in electronic gaming and these guys would be doing Munchkin. Well, they can be in the same, not exactly the same team, but in the same house, so there's a common cause. And we didn't know if there was going to be any interest there. And in fact, at some points I felt like I was a little arrogant thinking I could create, this mythology. So the different houses are Stoneheim, which are the brute force guys, the Luminaris, which are the enlightened thinkers and the educated people, and then Grimbriar, which is the nature affiliation, and Darthenkel, which is the out-of-the-box thinkers, the clever, kind of...
That would have been the Luminatus one. That would have been me.
Oh, yeah, right. So my favorite moment was I wasn't there for it, but I heard from our Patty Glenn, who's doing our tabletop gaming coordinator. So we gave people these jars, one for each house, and you receive house points by being given a token, and it's up to you to drop it into the house's jar. And so first off, there was a decent amount of participation, which was great. But then somebody from Darthenkel saw that Luminaris' jar was more full, and he went out into the gaming floor, and he recruited other Darthenkel people he had never met, complete strangers, and they banded together and found all the ways that they could participate in activities.
Sounds like
to get.
Slytherin.
Yeah, it does. And they brought it back, and they're like, "Ha-ha!" And they're filled.
It was like literally the cup went.
That's so cool.
Within a few hours.
Yeah. So that was an example of gamers that didn't know each other.
Yeah.
Using our space, our event, to kind of meet and get to participate in something as a group, and that is the core of what we're trying to do, and that was really cool.
And one last question. It's actually about the fighting stuff that you guys like, Mortal Kombat and stuff. Why did you guys decide on Mortal Kombat and Super Smash Brothers, but not Street Fighter and Marvel, or is that something you're going to do in the future?
That's super easy to answer.
Okay.
Mortal Kombat is a locally produced game.
Okay.
So it fits in with our mandate or our goals to help promote Chicago area. Now, a lot of our focus is on the little guy.
Yeah.
But there's no reason we can't give a nod to NetherRealm Studios, which is the really Chicago's most prominent game development studio. And there's a whole history of gaming in Chicago. Chicago used to be more of a nexus of activity. There was an EA office here.
We had
Midway, Bungie was born here. And so there's been a decline. But NetherRealm and Ed Boon and his team are still there, and they're still doing well. I mean, Mortal Kombat X was on the front cover of the magazines, and it sold. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Mortal Kombat X, at some point in 2015, was the best-selling title, period, hands down.
We did do an interview with them as well.
So, yeah,
because they are local and it's a great game.
Yeah,
excellent.
So yes, we'll look at other fighting games, but just like the collectible card section, just like the miniatures section, we had to be judicious in what we could provide.
Yeah.
We didn't want to bite off more than we could chew.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be a whole lot of mediocre content as opposed to a smaller amount of tightly focused fun stuff.
All right. Well, thank you guys
Thank
for
you.
telling us all this great stuff, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys in the future here.
Absolutely. We'll see you in 2016.
Thanks again.